There's a certain look people get when they run out of things to do. You've seen it. The phone comes out, gets checked, goes back in the pocket. Then it reappears 40 seconds later because nothing's changed except that the waiting got heavier. A slow line. A waiting room where the clock seems bolted in place. For most people, a long stretch of empty time is a low-grade discomfort they can't quite name. And then there's you. You just settle in. Your body goes still, your mind quietly picks up wherever it left off, and the empty time stops feeling empty. You're not waiting for it to be over. You're a little annoyed when it ends. If that's you, this whole video is about you. And by the end, I'm going to tell you the one thing all 7 of these traits secretly share. Because it's also the reason people have been slightly misreading you your entire life, usually as the exact opposite of what's actually going on. Stay for that part, because almost nobody who has these traits ever sees it about themselves. Let's start with the one underneath all the others. Your mind makes its own entertainment. While most people need something in front of them to feel occupied, you've got a whole second channel running on the inside, a conversation you're replaying, an argument you're finally winning, 3 days too late, a plan, a memory, a random what if. When the outside world goes quiet, your inside world just turns the volume up. There's real science under this. The brain has a system researchers call the default mode network, and it switches on precisely when you stop focusing on the outside world. For years, people assumed the brain just idles when you're not busy. The opposite is true. In those unfocused moments, it lights up, wandering, imagining, connecting things on its own. Everyone has this network. You just live there more comfortably than most people ever do. And here's something worth saying right away, because you've probably been misread your whole life. When someone's genuinely fine on their own, people tend to assume the worst. That you're shy, antisocial, a little lonely, and not admitting it. But the research points the other direction. Being comfortable alone is usually a sign that your relationship with yourself is steady, not that something's missing. You were never the one who couldn't connect. You were just the one who didn't need noise to feel okay. That's the first trait. Here's the second, and it's smaller and funnier than you'd think. You find ordinary things interesting. Be honest. You've read the entire ingredient list on a bottle of shampoo mid-shower for no reason except that it was there. You've built a whole backstory for a stranger in a checkout line and moved on with your day. Psychologists call this openness, one of the core personality traits, and it basically measures how naturally curious your mind is. The payoff is enormous. When you're wired this way, the world almost never runs out of things worth noticing, which means it almost never runs out of ways to keep you company. Now the third one, and you already know this feeling, you start something small, doodling in a margin, following a single question online until you surface an hour later with 30 tabs open and no memory of the first one. That state has a name. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent his life studying it and called it flow, the feeling of being so absorbed that time bends and you forget yourself completely. Most people need something big to get there. You fall into it doing almost nothing, and when you can reach that on your own, boredom barely stands a chance. So those first 3 are the ones you'd happily admit at a dinner table. Good imagination, curious mind, easy to absorb. Flattering stuff. The next few are quieter, and honestly, they're more yours. Because here's a question. What are you actually like when there's nothing to distract you at all? No task, no screen, no other person, just you and your own thoughts. That's the fourth trait, and it's rarer than almost anyone realizes. You can sit alone with your own mind and be completely fine there. Let me show you how unusual that is. Researchers once left people alone in a plain room for 15 minutes with nothing but their thoughts. That was the whole experiment. Sit and think. The only other thing in the room was a button that gave a small electric shock, and a surprising number of people pressed it, on purpose, the men especially. They would rather feel a jolt of pain than sit quietly with themselves for 15 minutes. Sit with that for a second. For a lot of people, their own company is the thing they're running from, but for you, it's the opposite. You can be alone with a thought, even an uncomfortable one, and let it just be there without needing to escape it. That's not a small thing. It's a kind of steadiness most people never get to feel. Which leads into the fifth trait, and this is the one that gets you misunderstood the most. You're not antisocial. You're selective. You genuinely enjoy people. You love a conversation that actually goes somewhere with someone who can keep up, but you've probably noticed something you rarely say out loud. Even good social time quietly drains a battery in you that it doesn't seem to drain in everyone else. You get home from a nice evening and you don't feel empty. You just feel like you need an hour of quiet to become yourself again. That's not you being cold. Connecting means stepping out of your own inner world to track someone else's, and when your inner world is this full, that costs you a little more than it costs other people. Now the sixth, and this is where people really get you wrong, you don't need an audience for your effort to feel worth it. You'll learn something nobody asked you to learn. Get quietly good at a thing no one will ever see you do. Keep a notebook you're certain no one else will ever open, and mean every page of it anyway. We live in a world that mostly rewards the loud kind of effort, the kind with a finish line and a crowd, so from the outside, your quiet version can look like it doesn't count. But two psychologists, Dacey and Ryan, built a whole theory around exactly this, called self-determination theory. The simple version is that some things we do for a reward, and some things we do because the doing itself is the reward. When the doing is genuinely enough for you, you stop needing the world to hand your time its meaning. You give it meaning yourself. Which brings us to the last one, the one everything else has been quietly leaning toward. You've made real peace with your own company. Think back to the kid who could vanish into a corner and play alone for hours, building something no one else could see, completely content. For most people, that kid slowly got trained out of them. For you, it just grew up and got quieter. Now it looks like your place at midnight, everyone asleep, and you awake and calm, not lonely, just alone in a way that feels entirely like yours. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude that a lot of people never learn. Loneliness is being alone and aching for it to stop. Solitude is being alone and finally feeling like you've got room to breathe. Same empty room, completely different experience, and that running voice in your head, the inner narrator that psychologist Ethan Kross studies, has become something closer to steady company for you than a source of noise. So those are the 7. Now the thing I promised you at the start, here's what all of them share. Everyone comes down to the same quiet fact. Your mind generates its own weather. It doesn't wait for the outside world to hand it something to feel or notice. It makes its own. And that's the exact thing people misread. From the outside, someone quietly self-contained looks like they're missing out on the noise everyone else is chasing. From the inside, it was never emptiness you were sitting in. It was fullness that just doesn't need an audience to be real. What looked like you not needing enough was always you already having enough. The people who worried you were lonely were looking at a full room and seeing an empty one. So maybe the quiet was never a thing to fix. Maybe it was just the shape a rich inner life takes when there's no one around to watch it work. And if you felt all of this while listening, you already know exactly which kind of person you are. You're just not the only one. Right now, on the other side of a screen, there are far more people quietly at home in their own company than the world's noise would ever let you guess.